나가서 라운드 된다고 되면 다문고들 집을 중고 단도 연락하시는 바 되는 데도 연락하시는 바 되는 집이 주의 라운드로 샤주 생고 안내 친사버로 왔어.
So we've been going over the text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, and we've gone over the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the beings of great capacity, or teachings for beings of great capacity. And we've seen that relative to that scope, bodhicitta is indispensable and very important, or the bodhicitta is the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So we've seen the importance and the indispensability of the mind that aspires to enlightenment relative to the great scope. And when we speak of this mind of bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, there are two vehicles in which this mind that aspires to enlightenment is of the utmost necessity, and those two vehicles are the perfection vehicle within the great vehicle system and the tantric vehicle within the great vehicle system. So these are the two divisions of the great vehicle, the tantric vehicle and the perfection vehicle.
다 바신 디발 러브 수들라 송 추진지 러브 러브 수다 땡겐지 러브 러브 수다 싫어지 러브 러브 수수 송레스 말바.
And the three higher trainings of the three highest higher training, the highest higher training in ethics, the highest higher training in concentration, and the highest higher training in wisdom are also very important. So there are three of them, and those three are named or imputed as the three higher trainings, or the three highest higher trainings, if we speak of it technically.
어제 다드네 추진지 러브 러브 수다 땡겐지 러브 러브 수니 찾아버렸어.
And we've gone over the highest higher training in ethical behavior, or in ethics, and the highest higher training in concentration. So we've now arrived at and have begun to discuss the highest higher training in wisdom.
당아서 싫어지 러브 러브 수가 돌려와르스.
So now we've arrived at and will explain the highest higher training in wisdom.
다디 된생가 담보 싫어 러브 구비 주세. 싫어지 러브 구비 주세 가르스나 돈이 두비 싫어 러브도 매나 녀모바도 시지바 봉투 말에 대인소사 싫어지 러브도 구그레스. 담보 사지 dwing 된생의 dwing 난 담보도 어디 말বে.
So it's when we look at the actual wisdom, or the highest higher training in wisdom, we need to figure out what is the reason for this highest higher training. What is the need for this? And the reason for this is, without emptiness, without an understanding of the nature of reality, or the emptiness of the nature of reality, without this understanding, it's impossible to eradicate the afflictive obstructions as well as the obstructions to omniscience. One must eradicate the misconception, which is the antithesis of the understanding of emptiness relative to all phenomena, in order to eradicate all of the coarse and subtle afflictions. So this is the reason and behind the necessity of understanding, of having the wisdom realizing emptiness.
다 돈이 두비 싫어도 매나 녀모바도 시지바 가르지는 봉투고 말해. 호모 두비 주생 가르스나 녀모바도 시지바 생긴 추나 대바 주반지 대지다 녀모도 샤그레스. 아네 녀모가 싸와 대질 도디와스 추나 대바 주반지 대지. 대지게 신유 대바 매바 두비 싫어도 매바 대지 봉투고 말해스. 대지 보마토나 대지가 녀모 봉투고 말해 동에 봉투고 말해스. 대인소다 돈이 두비 싫어 글라바든 게 그래스 말베.
So now, what is the reason that we need the wisdom realizing emptiness, and why is it necessary to have in order to eradicate the afflictive obstructions as well as the obstructions to omniscience? The reason it's necessary to have the wisdom realizing emptiness is because the grasping at true existence, which is the mistaken view that we all cling to, is what actually causes all of the other afflictions and actions that they promote. So if one can eradicate the misconception of all phenomena being truly established or all phenomenon being truly existent, if that misconception can be eradicated, then the grasping at true existence, which that misconception produces, is eradicated. And if that is eradicated, then the afflictions and so forth and the negative predispositions that it leaves are also eradicated. So this is why it is important and indispensable along the path to liberation or Buddhahood, one must have this wisdom realizing emptiness, which serves as an opponent to the misconception or the mistaken view of the substantialism or the true existence of phenomena.
So this is why
in the Heart Sutra it speaks of the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature, form is emptiness, etc. The reason behind the 5 aggregates, it says skandhas in a text, but skandhas is Sanskrit for aggregates. So the 5 aggregates are empty of nature. So this is what the Heart Sutra is speaking of in this section. It's a way to negate the true establishment of the 5 aggregates, negate the inherent establishment or true existence of the 5 aggregates in the ego. So this is of the utmost importance in order to eradicate these obstructions to omniscience and the afflictive obstructions.
어제 다 돈이 되면 셔럭을 하바 고도 고거데 셔럭을 하바 짬바 근디가 말에 터는 셔럭 손데 고거스 셔럭 짬바 고네 녀리 본토고 마시리 본토고 말에 터는 셔럭 니가 녀서 레벨을 되네 안에 시리도 녀리 본 가사 시리 본고 마도 지게 셔럭 짬베 시리 본토고 말스 터는 셔럭 니차 고거스
That's Rinpoche, the Nudri, Tapdang Sherik Nicha Goa.
터는 녀리 본발라 돈이 되면 셔럭은 지거와 Right. So it is possible with the wisdom realizing emptiness alone to eradicate the afflictive obstructions, but the obstructions to omniscience cannot be eradicated without the union of method and wisdom. So the wisdom realizing emptiness alone is not sufficient and will not produce the desired result of eradication of the obstructions to omniscience. So the coarse afflictions and so forth are abandoned, but the imprints of those coarse afflictions, the imprints that are left over from that, are called the obstructions to omniscience, and those are not eradicated unless one has the union of both method and wisdom. So this is why one can find in the Madhyamika Avatara by Chandrakirti the quote that states that the great goose, in order for the great goose to fly over the vast ocean to the other side, it's necessary for that goose to have both wings. Likewise, in order for the practitioner to cross the vast ocean of cyclic existence to the other side, i.e. Buddhahood, it's necessary to have the 2 wings of method and wisdom in union. 산지 고본도 발라 터다 싫어 니가 그나 안에 터라 가지 요하래 싫어라 가지 요하래 집에 있나 안 터는 싫어 이와 시기 있 네 어때 손바들 해온 거 말봐.
So the next third thing that we will arrive at is the actual nature of method and wisdom and the differentiation between the two. The Yanjur Suranam, the Jason. So the next section goes over the actual divisions of method and wisdom. So how many divisions are there of method? What is the nature of that? How many divisions of wisdom are there? What is the nature of that? So the next section, which I believe is the third, goes into the explanation of division of method and wisdom.
다 터드 가르 터기 털 있는 가지고 여러 집이나 싫어 바로 신봉비스 신주가 너네 아니 라바 싫어지 라바 마임비 짐바 추진라서 방한테 터리스 나도 터리스 로바 아니 돈이 또비 손수 그러다 신주가 너네 싫어가 라바데 아니 왜 손수 말이야 싫어지 라바 마임비 신주 도망가 여러와 나 터리스
So when we speak of the six perfections, which are also indispensable on the Mahayana vehicle, or the great vehicle, and we divide those perfections into method and wisdom, we will find that the first five perfections, the first five being generosity, ethical behavior, patience, perseverance, and concentration. When we look at those first five, those all fall into the category of method. And the sixth, sixth perfection, which is wisdom, right after concentration, falls into the category, of course, of wisdom. So here we can find the union of method and wisdom even within the six perfections and how they are divided up. So we can begin to see what the reason and behind and the nature of these topics are.
다시러지 버리지만 마임비 짐발로서 방아부 터리스 터 이미 주생 가르스나 상제 고들 추고도 주군이 요아르스 아니 시시 셔러지 버리 마임비 짐발로서 방아부데 최저 주권이는 주 조구 라진 주제 조구 투비 주인자 터리스 돈이 투비 셔러데 최저 주권이는 주 최고 도제게 네 조구 라진 주제인자 셔러 말베 터든 셔러도 오든 자고르스.
So what do these actions produce? What do things such as the six perfections, such as the perfection of generosity, what do these things produce? So it's divided as follows. The method itself and actions which fall into the category of method with proper motivation leave predispositions which will ripen into the actual form body of the Buddha. And the form body is called the Robokaya, and which is divided into emanation and enjoyment, or Sambhokaya and Nirmanakaya. So the Robokaya is the actual body that the method creates. So this is the reason for the necessity of having the method. The sixth perfection, perfection of wisdom, and wisdom in general, is what allows one to achieve the state of the Dharmakaya body. So the Dharmakaya, or the actual body, truth body, is what is produced by wisdom. So we can see the necessity of having both of these things in order to arrive at our goal.
어제 다 나와 사제발 지덴바니 란타시니 레부코니스 지가서 군조 덴바 도다 덴바 니레스 란가서 아니 도다 덴바 투비 외송 데는 군조 덴바라 미비 상주가 생라서 터니를 용거레스 데니 아서 렘발라 데네 레부 사제비 가서 군이 토용거레스 조고다 추군이 토용거레스 지덴바니 란타시니 레부코니스
the kale, the Yajasura line, the ni lam
Jil dembani ane true to marba absolute
hakoson gonzon damba dunda
ta absolute mibi toni do shero de shero res marba tene kunzu dembala mibi shangchu ge sen hinshimolo tores tene nyaso lembala tene rebu kar yongresana sanji gaso chugoda zoguni dun yongres
leso tu chena. So when we look at this relative to the two truths being ultimate truth and conventional truth, or absolute truth and conventional truth, The actual higher training in wisdom uses as its object of observation ultimate truth or ultimate reality, whereas the conventional reality is what the method actually achieves. The actual practice using objects of observation, such as the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta, etc., falls into the category of the conventional truth. So it's dependent upon the object of observation, whether it is conventional or ultimate truth. But both of these produce the form and the truth bodies of the Buddha. So the actual ultimate truth produces the Dharmakaya or truth body, and the conventional truth produces the form body or the Robokaya. So the wisdom produces the Dharmakaya, and the method produces the Robokaya.
다 상주 그 줄이 저선은 상주 선바 차는 거스 상주 선바 차는 되는 초랑레스 되는 조랑 통랑 고랑 되는 상주 그 생랑레 뭔가 말베 어디 신주도 초랑 가서 요래 근데 통랑 조랑 가서 요래 통랑 가서 요래 고랑 가서 요래 근데 상지 산에 요지로다 신주서 말베
멜로람
멜로람서 그러베
유르베 So, when we have the arisal of the actual mind, Mahayana mind generation, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, when we have the arisal of bodhicitta, at that time, when one has the arisal of bodhicitta, at that time, he or she becomes a bodhisattva. And once the person is a bodhisattva, they've entered the first Mahayana path, which is the path of accumulation. Then it builds upon it. So these two necessities can be found throughout the remaining four paths. Excuse me. So these two necessities can be found on the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So we can find these in all of those five paths, and we can see why it is indispensable, even up until the last of the five great vehicle paths. So when we look at the potency of the actual if we look at the if we look at the potency of the actual six perfections on the path of accumulation, we can see that their potency is not as great as the potency of the six perfections on the path of preparation. And on the path of seeing, the potency is much more great, and the abilities of these perfections is much more great, and so forth. So as we traverse the five paths, as one traverses the five paths of accumulation, the six perfections, and the practice ability is present, is less than the path of preparation. And the path of preparation's abilities are less than that of the path of seeing. The path of seeing is less than that of the path of meditation. The path of meditation is, the potency of the six perfections is less than the path of no more learning. So we see as the gradual stages, as one traverses the stages, as he or she traverses them, the potency of the practice becomes greater. So I think we're at 47. So here we're going to see the question might arise, what is the nature of wisdom? Or how is wisdom defined? Ngol can mean definition, but really nature is more of a literal translation. Its essence. What is the nature of wisdom? So here in number 47, the great Lord Atisha will explain to us the nature of wisdom. So number 47, understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced is described as wisdom. So here, wisdom is defined as understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing that the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced. So the understanding emptiness of inherent existence is understanding dependent origination, understanding that because of dependent origination, because a phenomena dependently originates, it is necessarily empty of true existence because it has no inherent existence from its own side, exclusive of the collection which is nominally designated. So it's because it dependently originates that it is necessarily empty of true existence or empty of inherent existence. So this actual understanding serves as an opponent to the mistaken view of grasping at true existence. So it doesn't matter. This can be what we apply to this. It could be objective observation. It could be, when we speaking of phenomena, it could be objective observation. It can be any existent. It can be any valid tseme drupa, shidrup, tseme drupa, any phenomena established through valid cognition. Shidrup, sheja, yoba. So there are various divisions within the logic primer of existence and things which are synonymous with existent objective apprehension. I forgot what the actual literal names are, but it's the object of apprehension, object of knowledge, existent, and so forth. So there are various categories, and all of these categories are said to be the same, empty of true existence. Tuku. Ale, kansa chumayin.
Gaza Chuyin, Chudan Gaza Nisu Shi Chu the Maris, Nisu Shi Chu the Gaza Maim Chu the Logo. Gaza the Churis, Gaza Maim Chu Maris. Gaza Maim Churwa.
Kansa Maim Chu Yoba.
Gaza Chudare Gaza Roa. Gaza Maim Chu Kamba Dan Redan, the Zuga Churo. Ta Gaza Demba Maruba de Gaza Damen Segres, Gaza Demba Maruba de Gaza Din Tony Re, Gaza Damen Segres, Oman Tanju.
So when we look at the Madhyamika Prasangika view of this, and we look at the highest view, which is the middle way consequence school view, we see that they separate phenomena into kansak, which is person or being, and phenomena which is literal phenomena which is person or being does not exist. So those are the literal translations. So it's basically person or being and everything else, which is phenomena or inexistent. So both of these are divided and said to be empty of true establishment. And these formulas, according to the Madhyamika Prasangika system, are applied to all phenomena, that which is person or being and that which is other than person or being. And when we speak of person or being, this refers to sentient and sentient beings, but also others. Translators note Buddha is not a emanation body is not a sentient being, but is a person or being. It's not sentient. 10th Bodhisattva level is non-sentient. So any being falls into the category of being or person, kansak. So a hell realm being, an animal, emanation body, the enjoyment body, a human being, a sentient being, all of these fall into the category of kansak or person, and that which is not person is everything else, phenomenon. So these are divided in this way, and they say the emptiness of person, or the non-existence of the inherent existence of person. And then they say the emptiness of phenomena, which lacks person. So this is according to the Madhyamika Prasangika school, and the basic way of saying it, which is easier, is both person and non-person, that which is existent, is empty of true existence, are empty of true existence. Less so.
Kansa yinzang ko denpa madrupa dil kansa ke dame se lo du waris. Kansa ke dame se waris.
So the sentient being is a person or being. I know this is confusing, but that's what we translate it as from Tibetan to English. So sentient being is semchen, and person is kansak, or being is kansak in Tibetan. So the sentient being falls into the category of person. So just to make it clearer for everyone who might have not understood.
Pombongabo karol den tabi chebudil kansa se maru kansa ke senji maru be. Pombongabo karol den tabi chebudil kansa se logres. Mede pombongabo karol den tabi chebu yinzang kansa res. Senju be kangalo pombongabo karol den tabi chebu yinzang kansa res.
Less so. So when we look at the five aggregates themselves, the collection of the five aggregates, the aggregates themselves are not named or imputed as person, but the collection of those aggregates which are nominally designated, once those are all together, becomes person. So the aggregates themselves are not person, but the collection of those aggregates are nominally designated as person. So once that collection is present, then one can say that there is a non-mistaken person there. The mistaken view is the grasping at true existence of that person, but the actual person isn't existent.
Oje ta pombonga karol den tabi pona shindang chudang redang tu ngalo pombonga karol den tabi chebu maro gaza maro senju bi maro chudang gaza ni su chures chu maro.
So when we look at beings or person is dependent upon or reliant upon these aggregates of among the five aggregates. But we see that trees, for instance, do not have aggregates in general. So the trees and things of this nature fall into the category of phenomena or existent, whereas person is dependent or relying upon among the aggregates. And translators note, the reason I say among the aggregates is it's not necessary to have all five, because there's formless beings.
Tapana kamba dabote gaza maro chures. Chu yinzang kamba deba maruba de chuji dame se logres.
So a house, for instance, is not dependent upon these five aggregates. A house does not have these, but the house itself is empty of true establishment. So we say that selflessness of phenomena. So we say that in this case, it is the selflessness of phenomena, not the selflessness of person, because person refers to one which is dependent upon the 5 aggregates, and house is not. So we take it out of that category and put it into the category of phenomena, selflessness of phenomena.
다 간사가 다음에 최지 다음에 니 가르치는 자고 가르치는 간사가 다음에 최지 다음에 니 자버스 티바이나 아니 최진들라 간사다 최니 여자 아니 다음에들라 간사가 다음에다 최지 다음에 니 자고 버스 네 오마라 주발레 다음에는 로아나 드시 최단 간사이 나니 송스 다음에는 로아나 드시 최단 간사이 나니 송스 사제게 최단 다음에 Deba Maduba Sombares, Goba Karas, Karajan Sombares, Goba Kankiche de Sombaresna, Koana Kaza Kasure, Sejena, and Koatan Ku Dungel Tree Shadow, and the Dame Sombares, Sajek. The Nija were the Karasana, Tonji Chujin de la Kanzata, Chuni Yuzan, and the Kanzak Dameta, Chuj Damanija Mores.
So when we look at these two categories of person and phenomena, we see that there is selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person. So we can find in the Uttara Tantra, the sublime Maitreya's Julam, Umajupa, the Umajupa, the Madhyamika Avatar. I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. The Uttara Tantra is Maitreya, that's wrong. The Umajupa is the Madhyamika Avatara by Chandrakirti. The English is the entrance to the middle way. We can find that it speaks of the selflessness of phenomena and the selflessness of person, and speaks of the selflessness of Buddhahood as well as the cyclic suffering of cyclic existence. Both of these, the suffering of cyclic existence and the state of unsurpassable, true, complete Buddhahood are both selfless and empty because they fall into the category of these phenomena. So this can all be designated as, all of these things are designated as either selflessness of phenomena or selflessness of person.
오지 니자 가자가 되면 취지 되면 니자가 취던 가자 니 여자 아니 취지 되면 가자가 되면 니자 용어스 대송고야 고바 가르스나 아니 코알 가르사 다음에는 로안나 주시를 코알트 코아다 그동에다 좀 내송고 동에라서 받다를 주의체도 아니 사제기 다음에 니 송버스 고바들 송이자
연주스러나
세제나 내송고 동에다 그 동에래 주의체도 아니 타바도 체도 내송고 동에를 타네 아니 타바도 체도 그러다 녀모바다 동에 보내 타바도 체도 아니 다음에 송버스 다음에 니 송버스 니 송고야데 취도 가자 니 여자 안 다음에 니 송버스.
So when we look at the suffering of the lower realms and so forth, of the 3 lower realms, and then we look at liberation or we look at nirvana itself, and the ability to achieve liberation is based on the fact that the afflictions and so forth also fall into the category of selflessness of phenomena. So the all of these can be categorized into either of those, but whether they fall into which category they fall into is not important. The importance is that the both of them are empty of true nature. So this is why the ability to achieve liberation is there. So the afflictive obstructions themselves, the coarse kinds of afflictions, can be eradicated with the understanding of selflessness of person alone. Can be brought about through the selflessness of person, can be brought on by the realization of selflessness of person.
오지 다트네 오마랑 주바당 세상 바당 아니 도드바당 시다마 쪽에 간사가 다음에서나 아니 간사가 다음에 장발라고 말했어. 간사가 다음에서 근데 Kanza Raja to be Zio to Maduba, the Kanza Damelo to Gris, Kanza Dame. Chu Kanza Raja to be Zio Maduba, Dame, Kanza Raja to be Zio to Maduba, Kanza Dame is. Kanza Dame Jatan, Oma Tanju Raju Mechi, Kanza Dame Jatan Kakaris.
So when we move to some of the other views in the tenet systems, we look at the tenet systems, there's different opposing views relative to the selflessness of phenomena, selflessness of person. As we move as we go through the levels of the tenet system, and as we move down from the Prasangika view to the middle way autonomy view, or the Madhyamika Svatantrika view, and then we move down from the actual middle way autonomy school view to the mind-only view, or the Chittamantran view, and then we move from the Chittamantran school to the Sautrantika school, or the Sutra school, and then we move down to the Vibhashika school, or the Great Exposition school. So all of these schools within the tenet systems have opposing views, and the amount of phenomena which amount of phenomena considered empty or the amount of phenomena considered selflessness, that is considered to be selfless, decreases as the levels of the schools decreases. So the lowest level negates much less relative to the true existence than the middle way consequent school. So as you move up through the levels of the tenet system, the view becomes more and more subtle, and the object of negation becomes much broader.
Oje tat bana shiriba zoge kanza ga da segende shiriba zoge kanza ga da dan phombu ni bude dewa me baris kanza dan kanza ga phombu yorwa kanza ga da dan phombu ni bude dewa me baris ane dewa me bi phombu dan dewa me bi da ju yoso baris shiriba zoge phombu le ngo ta te bi da phombu dan dewa me bi da ju yoso baris
Phombu dan
dewa me ba ta kanten de marbe
Hakusun Tanda Kijo Tugi.
Deni ro de phombo je de da je ro deni ro yo maro da de menen de yo chu de menen de yo chu
Lessa
phombo da kanza ni bo de ro yo mare je barda phombo le dwen je bi phombo le ngo tha de bi phombo dan ro me bi phombo dan ro me bi nga se de da ze phombo dan ro me bi da ju res lo do res.
And in the non-Buddhist traditions, non-Buddhist schools, we can find the assertion that there is not a connection between the I or ego and the aggregates themselves, that there is something that is exclusive from the aggregates themselves, which creates soul or I or ego. So they're not considering a connection between the aggregates and the actual self or I. So here we can find this, the quote, the aggregates, the aggregates, the stanzas do not have, there is not an existing connection between the aggregates and the I. So we can find this quote in some non-Buddhist scriptures where they state that there is something exclusive, which is I or ego or soul.
What the Buddha maybe dash riba to yola waters. Number do the bad now, Shira Mawata, Sansan, but Oma Taji, what that do your marriage with that do your marriage.
So no matter what, if you're looking at the Vibhashika school, Great Exposition school, or the Sautrantika school, the Sutra school, or the Chittamantran school, mind-only school, or the Madhyamika school, the middle way school, all of these negate the actual true self of I or of ego. No matter what school we're speaking of, they all negate the Sheramawa Tamche Da Mepa Kelengadue.
Shiribi Dad Mezer, Jirama, Tanjik Mezer. Shiribi Kina Pubutan Dewa maybe Dade, Yomaris. Shirama, Tanjik in
The Dewa Yure Kelengadue. The Sheramawa.
That woman Dewa Yure.
Dewa Yure Kelengadue. So yes, All of the schools within Tibetan Buddhism do assert that there is a connection between the 5 aggregates and the I itself. So I had just asked Rinpoche if they all assert selflessness, and the answer is they all assert connection, because there are there's 7, I think, there's a certain number of schools, 5 schools, I believe, in the Vaibhashika system that assert a true self.
다 남바서 pompodan dewa me dayo marjiba pompo men dayo go maros pompodan dayo nyangdun dewa yores pompo men dayo go mdos pompodan dewa me dayo maris namba kangal labur.
So all Buddhists assert that there's a connection between I and aggregates. No Buddhists assert that one could have an I exclusive of aggregates or aggregates exclusive of I. So we cannot find that view within the Buddhist schools.
다 pompodan 다 치다 마속에 pompodan ngojibi da야 가사가 다 들어가지 kelende 거래. pompodan ngojiba 레데 있나야 pompo ngo송하나 마되비 다지 와레스 가사가 다 어떻게 가사가 다면 때 참으레스 가사가 다음에 들 차라니 도스 셔리비 가사가 다음에 라바레스 실하버레스 시다 마속에 가사가 다 요새 때 차버레스.
So in the non-Buddhist tradition, if we compare it to the lowest school of the Great Exposition School or Vaibhashika, the assertion of connection between aggregates and self, and the description of the negation of true establishment is at a very coarse level within the Vaibhashika school. It is moving away from the substantial view of the non-Buddhists. And substantial I'm using that word, it means substantialism, which means true existence. So this substantial view of non-Buddhists is still a much less evolved view than even the lowest school of the Vaibhashika.
시라마 가지 되니 전이 따만다 라수 주면 가자 제도스 가지 되니 전이 따만다 라수 pompodan 따만다 간도 제도면 비 가자 라자 두비 제도 주비다 주와레스 시라마 킬레고 시라마 마르베 네 다도 pompo니 ngoda 지버레스 다데 pompo라 온 조합이 잡은다 버레스 잡다 버나 아마라가 발생요로 발생다 아마라가 메시소 되는 뭐 집에서 그러봐. 레드 이나야 안에 오아차 자상 아마를 잡을요. 잡고 파생을요. 파생. 된 파생을요. 파생 되게 안에 아마를 무슨 걸 온쪽으로 그 온차요. 온쪽으로. एक जैम्बो तिब्बत नाजी दाद फुमल on jogres on joabe raja to bi
da jabo
da jabutabo fumol on joabe jabutabi da joares ote shirama na lu khelende war.
So within the Great Exposition School, the Vaibhashika school, there is an assertion that that the I itself, or ego, is like the king, like the driver behind the aggregates. They establish a connection in this sense. They establish a connection between I, ego, and aggregates in the way that they state that the I itself is the propelling force behind the aggregates. So this is the Great Exposition School view, that the self, or I, or ego, is what motivates the other aggregates. So this is the view within the Great Exposition School, a statement of the nature of these things, and comparing them to the nature of a king. So if, for instance, George Bush, I don't know if Rinpoche said George Bush, but he said the President of the United States has control over the entire United States. So that's why it's called the king, because the king runs the kingdom, just like the president would supposedly run the country. So that is why it's compared to that, and it's stated that the connection is because of the controlling factor of the I.
Tapana ngaso kanza lesona pana jeb lesons jeb ko domba ne thonsona pompo ngozon la tene ta jebures dayen domba tonsona o te dayen rejas daji ji ngozon la tene ga zango jan ku pompo idan kadu tonsona te ton la tene jan rejas daji ngozon la tene ga ngozon go doas ko shida ma de daji ngozon la daji ngozon la ma de be pompo lo on jua ga jabu da be daji waris the law there is.
So it's very similar to the king, which is has the power over these particular aggregates or skandhas, because based on the I and the motivation behind the I, the aggregates are propelled. The chik jason, the tamche, the chik jason. The pombo.
Daji seguro, daji ngasu sheep color, sheep color. Mersusul sheep color doa. Sheep medegi sheep color tondule o ta medrejas. The jabo rejas, tasha rejas, kon rejas, sheep the color ngozu tonala tene and the kaza terejas ngozu guduas.
So when, for instance, we perceive or cognize someone walking into a room, I'm just making sure I'm very clear because emptiness is something not to be unclear about. If someone were to walk into the room, then we see his or her face. For instance, you perceive Jeff. Jeff walks into the room, you look at the face, the color, the shape of the body, and so forth. Then you nominally designate that person as Jeff. Diane is the same way. We perceive the shape, the color, and so forth, and then nominally designate her as Diane. John, we would look at John's shape and color, and we would nominally designate him as John. Stasha, we would look at Stasha's shape and color, and then we would nominally designate her as Stasha, etc., ad infinitum. So this is the way that we actually truly bring a phenomena into being. So then, if we have a dog, for instance, we see these shapes and colors and so forth, and then we say, that's my dog, or that dog over there is their dog, that's not my dog.
What is it? Kanza da ngozon la shib khala ngozon la tugo maris ma tuba ron jabun da juwaris what the US law do what the me but and kanza da me tamoris.
So the Vibhashika school doesn't assert that this takes place, this discriminating awareness is as subtle as it is in the higher school. This nominal designation doesn't take place. The feeling of the Great Exposition School is that they are naturally, there is some nature of these things, external objects have some nature themselves, and it's a natural thing to take place because we're naming them as they are, as they truly are. So there isn't an actual, there isn't something taking place where one perceives the shapes and colors and so forth and nominally designates it. The belief is that it exists externally already as that object, and that is why we naturally name it as such, because it exists as that, what we name it.
Ta daje pombo ngozon la ma tobe pombo la on job raja tobe zed juban zemin zema joroba te lolo jeres omara juba sensan bata shira mando de bazoge otete raja tobe zed juban zemi jabuta be raja tobe zed juban zemi zema de kuy zawares te wage nyomoje te wage lesan kol kodares te dabi ganza dame de shesona ane kol trotogres kol 다좀 고본토 발라 yenchi meji choji dame to go mares kanza ga dame rabo ot to na ane kwal jo to gre taba to gres ranju ba mechi la go mares
ranju ba
senzamba do ba shira mo ko ji bares da jo go본토 발라 choji dame to go mar kanza ga dame pombola on joabo jabuta bi kanza meba to sona the gombala tene rajubu to gre nyomo pon to gre donge pon to gres.
So the belief within the Vibhashika school, the Sautrantika school, and the Chittamantran school up to the autonomy school is a belief that the actual I itself has this connection with the aggregates in which it propels the aggregates. And the Vaibhashika school states that it works in this fashion, but once we move to the Sautrantika school, Chittamantran school, and the autonomy school, it's the belief that the root of cyclic existence is this actual mistaken view or misconception of the actual I or ego that is propelling these aggregates. So the actual I itself is, according to the higher schools, is selfless and does not have nature from its own side, whereas the Vaibhashika Great Exposition School does assert in some cases does assert in some cases actual true existence or establishment. So the root of cyclic existence, according to the higher schools, is the actual mistaken view of grasping at form and shape and so forth, which then creates the wrong consciousness relative to those objects of observation.
What the Nandango to Sundo, Tony Tayu Treasure you Gombalama de Twins, Tony Tayu Treasure you Gombalama de Twins, Nandan, that's Handsome Jung Marbe, Handsome Jung in Dule, Tony Tayu Treasure you Gombalama de Twins, Pomble on Joabi, Kintabi, Rancha to be Joe to Juba Mabate, Danger Matas Judo Nane, Da Mabate, the Tony dress, the Tonsona, and a call to race. Danger Matas Judo Nan Lama Jonga Yorova. Jonga Sheba the Kui Jobonamatres, Danger Matas Judu, Danger Matas Judu Jamarva, Dogen de Bacunu de Bangoden Lande, Tell J. Judu Yorova, Judu Nane, Dame de Pumbola on Joabi, King Tabi Raja to be Zue Mabate, Dame res, Tony res. Then Lama Judu but the Shebi Lot the Kui Jobonam, Tell Trosheba Latene, Quapon to Grenadi Ponto. Tony Tayu Treasure Gombalama de Dunis, Tony de Ranja to be Zio to Juan Zimbi, the Ranja to be Zio to Maba to be, King Tabi Ran da Maba to be, to Sona, Dajimata Judugan Damen to Res. And the Lama Jonga Gomba de Trosheba Latene, Nyomo Montore, Dajon Totores.
Lama Jonga.
Deje mata judu jauro.
Judu shingi.
Dogen de kunju de bangoden lande. Ane dogen de bala mata dogen ton dame je. Mata ba dogen wa ton dame ba je. Dogen de bala je marbe. Mata ba dogen wa ton dame ba se ate kumbolo on joabi kinta bi rame dame ba odla gres. Tel toni lagta. Toni ngone maro da. Tadosuna ane call to grace. Tal Hama Chudu Yoro, Joe Kunju Raji Chen, La River Drubangenji, Gobashawa Chanungenu, what the Sheva Latene, Horoburu Jen, Dajumba Tutu, Nidipon to grace.
Then Lama Junga don't agree.
Lama Junga Judu Yoro, Judu
Shingi.
Judu and Kazaga Damet Setenzadu.
Ale. Okay, too generous. Yeah. So when we look at the, for instance, the mind-only school or the the Chittamantran school, and the perception of the nature of the actual reality and so forth, the statement is that the actual mind itself is what has the establishment and produces these other things which do not have establishment. So the understanding here is that the actual king is the mind, because the mind is what produces all of these other things mistakenly, and relates it to the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths that when we look at the truth of suffering, the truth of origin, the truth of path, and the truth of cessation, there are 4 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, making a total of 16 attributes. And when we take away one of those attributes, the actual phenomena is selfless, then we come up with actual 15, The attributes of the Four Noble Truths are that the suffering, impermanence, all compounded phenomena are the self. There are impermanent. Nirvana is peace. The Ji, the Tambo Ji, Mitapa.
Mataba is Mataba. Mataba Tomasho, Impamero.
Mitapa, Dungyawa.
Saji, Dungete, Mataba is Impamene.
Mitapa.
Dungyawa. Dungyawa Sabbath. Dungyawa. Donwas.
Empty.
Donwas is not interior. Da members.
Selfless. So, all phenomena, compounded phenomena are impermanent. Contaminated phenomena are suffering. Phenomena are empty, and phenomena are selfless. So those are the first four attributes of the Four Noble Truths, of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths.
Tapanangasu dunge sana kansal dunge pompu chu jesana mataba yinte keji ma yimbe ku keji nji zo mataba res.
So why is the subject suffering impermanent? The subject suffering is impermanent because it is momentary. If it is momentary, it is necessarily impermanent.
Ta ngaru chu jesana digro ngaru to mataba yinte keji ma yimbe keji nji zo mataba res.
So the subject I is impermanent. Why is the subject I impermanent? Because it is momentary. If it is momentary, it is necessarily impermanent.
Da ngasu dunghewa res. Dunghewa yimbe jusen karesana ane ngasul dunghe yuwa ta ngasul rawa yuwa mares. Le la tene yungu war, nyomu la tene yungu war, rawa meba. Le nyo ke jengwa jen res. Ngasu dunghe gabu yuwa mares, dunghe yungu yuwa res. Te lengwa le da nyomu ongu yungu yuwa res. Te yin so dunghewa res.
So why is it suffering? It's suffering because we have no independence. We have no independent choice whether we are going to have suffering or not. So this is why we state that we are, for instance, when I say we, Jeff, etc., we are suffering. The reason is we have no independence upon whether we will have suffering or not. We are forced into the various sufferings because of the predispositions within our continuum, negative predispositions within our continuum that rise, and then we are forced into suffering.
Then ngaso tongwa res. Tongwa yimbe jusen karesana shirebi ane pompolo ngo tate bi dase ya juero. O tege tongwa temaro was. Te yin so tongwa res.
So then we are empty. So the reason that we're stating that we are empty is because the non-Buddhists do not assert that we're actually empty of any sort of nature, but here we assert that we are empty.
Pompol tate bi dat maros. Pompol tate bi dat maizan, pompol don de ame bi dat maizan te tongwa res.
So because the actual aggregates themselves are not exclusive, and cannot be divided into, and the actual ego cannot be found, this is why we say that it is empty.
Da meba res. Da meba yimbe jusen karesana ne pompolo on joabi jabutabi ranjatobi zedu dad mares. Maizan da mebas.
And the reason it says selfless is because there is no actual inherent I or ego which is exclusive of these 5 skandhas. So this is the reason that the statement of selflessness is made. So the actual aggregates themselves cannot be brought, are not exclusive, and without the actual king, which is said to actually control these skandhas. So this is why it is stated that there is no production of, there is no aggregates that are inherently or exclusive of that actual process that it's connected to.
So
the actual antidote to the root of cyclic existence is the understanding that these actual aggregates themselves are selfless and they have no inherent nature from their own side. And once one can arrive at this understanding, then this serves as an antidote to the suffering of cyclic existence.
What the Damen Tonsuna, Dajumba Tutugri, Nudi Pontugri, Segente, Ranju Baje, Sanzan Baje, Shiramando Basamachibaris.
So if we can arrive at this realization of selflessness, then according to the Middle Way Autonomy School, the Chintamantran School or Mind Only School, the Sutrantika School, and the Vabhashka School, and again in English they'll go backwards, the Middle Way School, the Mind Only School, the Sutra School, and the Great Exposition School.
What call it that Nudi Pombala, Chuji Damen Tugo Maris, Kazaka Damen, what the two and degrees?
So all of those believe that the afflictive obstructions can be eradicated. That was from before. All of those believe that the afflictive obstructions can be eradicated through dependence upon selflessness, and then the one can arrive at the state of foe destroyer. Or arhat. Then one can arrive at the state of arhatship through dependence upon eradication of the afflictive obstructions. And this is according to the schools which are from the Middle Way Autonomy School down to the Middle Way, the Great Exposition School.
Then Shantin Dewaki, the Buddhism goes, and the Shiramazu, Zogoris, Kanzaka Damen Tosun quality was, quality Tony Karajin Gongores. Dame Tony Treji, Tony Jeshas. Tony Gon Karji, Kanzaka Damen Tosun quality to Gres, Nudi Pontogre, Dunga Pontogres, Raju Batan, Sanzan Batan, Shiramandu Lagores.
So we can find in the debate section the Shanti Deva's Bodhichara Avatar, Guided the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, where he states the view of the schools and states the selflessness and so forth, and negates the actual inherence, or negates the belief that there is inherence of some sort, and relates it to the actual schools of the Middle Way Autonomy and Mind Only and so forth, and states that there is no established existence and that they are selfless, and once one arrives at the selflessness, that the achievement of foe destroyer is possible.